Hello, everyone. This is our first Orbital in Conversation with. My name is Olivia, and I am the Orbital magazine's editor-in-chief.
Hi, I'm Beth. I am the Orbital's deputy editor, and today we're joined by...
I'm Madeleine. I was the Orbital's editor-in-chief last year. I'm the senior news editor this year, and I'm also the president of the PIR SOC, which kind of links into some stuff we're going to talk about later, so I'll leave that.
I think if anyone is watching, then you might be wondering what kind of Orbital in Conversation is about. Essentially, we've decided to make our kind of own makeshift podcast, and over the next kind of few months, we're going to be interviewing different journalists, different academics, different professionals about, their careers, their lives, and, how it links to especially journalism because it's a magazine. But so today we will be interviewing Maddie, who luckily is a very good friend of ours. So this will be a lot easier than interviewing anyone else. But I feel like we should explain how we all know each other somehow.
Yes. Yeah, let's do it. Do you want me to explain?
Go on.
History. We go way back. So when Maddie and I were both kind of late teenage years, I suppose like 16, 17, 18, we were both training in musical theatre. So we now have gone on slightly different paths in our life than we used to be. But yeah, we went to the same kind of weekend musical theatre school, very quickly became friends because I think it's fair to say we were maybe the two in the class that were actors or singers first as opposed to dancers. So we kind of stuck together in our dance classes.
Yeah, that's definitely fair to say.
And then when we both started Royal Holloway in the same year, we bumped into each other at the Orbital's kind of taster session, which was run by the editorial team at the time. And it was like that Spider-Man meme where they're all kind of pointing at each other. It was like, this is so strange, I know you. And now here we are.
Indeed.
I think it's fair to say we all kind of met because of Orbital, maybe. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we do the same degree, we both do English, but we all kind of met because of Orbital. And weirdly enough, that meant that we ended up doing other things together. We did Model United Nations together, which I think is important to mention because I think it links in quite well with what we will be talking about today. So we all got to go to New York together, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And Liv and I now live together, which is why we're in separate rooms in the same house.
So we literally can hear each other, but I'm not going to talk about
it.
That's okay.
We need to try not to laugh too loudly because it will just echo across the rooms.
So I think we should begin.
Should we get started? Amazing, thank you. So Maddie, would you like to tell us a little bit about your time at the Orbital and how that then led to you being editor-in-chief last year?
Of course. So in my first year, I'm a very type A personality, just to give a bit of context. So before I came to uni, I had literally looked at all of the societies on the Students' Union website, and I decided which ones I wanted to join. And I knew that I wanted to join and get involved in the student magazine because that was something that we didn't have like in my secondary school. And so I went to like the first taster session and then the first social and that sort of thing. And very quickly there was an empty space on the editorial board for deputy opinion editor. And I was like, I know I'm a first year, but I'm gonna run, give it a go, sort of thing. And I was lucky enough to get the position, which meant I kind of got the experience of writing journalistically for the magazine for the first time, but also I was kind of holding an editorial role, getting involved in editing articles, but also kind of shaping the section of opinion and that sort of thing. And so then I thought, why not give it a go? Why not run for editor-in-chief? I ran for both editor and deputy editor because I just wanted to give it a go. And I thought, if I wasn't elected, I could then run for a section editor position and that sort of thing. But I actually, I was elected editor-in-chief. And it was such fun. It was hard work, but it was such fun being editor. I think the creative direction side is something that I'm really interested in, and I didn't really realize how interested in that I was going to be. And then I was coming up with my deputy editor last year, Hannah, right when we were elected, we started talking about what kind of direction we wanted to take it. We were talking about having like a single adjective as the prompt for each issue, and having like single color covers and that sort of thing. And we just had kind of quite a distinct vision, I think. And I'm so happy when I look back at the 5 issues that we created last year. It's such like a source of pride, and also being like a leader of such a great team as well. Obviously you two were both section editors of mine, and it was lovely, because I think lots of us got to know each other really well, and especially because you two were obviously doing NMUN as well. So I was actually your boss twice over, which is kind of funny, but
Yeah.
still came out of it friends. So
it worked. Should we explain a little bit about NMUN, maybe what that entails?
I think so. Well, I think again, maybe Maddie, you'd be the best one to just explain it. Maddie was our head delegate last year, so yes.
Okay, so NMUN is basically America's largest Model United Nations. Model United Nations is a simulation of the United Nations for the purpose of kind of educating students about diplomacy and politics and international affairs and that sort of thing. Royal Holloway is, I believe, now the only British uni that goes to the New York conference. And basically we trained for 6 months. My fellow head delegate and I did lots of peer training. So we ran the sessions, and we got everyone ready for conference and that sort of thing. And then we spent 12 days in New York, which was just amazing. It was just the most fantastic group we had, actually, because it was a social as well as an academic experience, I think. And yeah, we came out of it with a couple of awards, which was really lovely, and another real source of pride, to be honest, because we won. So the way that the awards work is essentially the group awards are an average of everyone's like achievement throughout the whole conference across the whole of our group. So to win in the highest category in that award was really fantastic, because it just shows that everyone did a really good job, which I'm very proud of.
I think it was great in a sense that, I mean, you probably feel the same, that we study English, we were surrounded by people that do, you know, IR and politics and law and things like that, and we felt kind of out of our depth. And I think even a couple of sessions in, we were like, yeah, we've got this, we know what we're doing. But I think going to New York and then doing the conference itself, like, you suddenly get this kind of confidence that you never had before, and you really want to kind of prove yourself and prove your team how well you're going to do. So I think yeah, it was great. But actually that links in very well with our next question, which is, could you tell us a bit about kind of your career prospects and what you want to do when we get to this end of year looming deadline?
Oh goodness. Yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, it's become very pressing now, because lots of like grad schemes and kind of scholarships for masters and training courses are starting now, and it's yeah, I think that's going to be my reading week, essentially. It's going to be so I'm casting a wide net, so to speak, because I'm studying law with politics. I think I forgot to mention that at the beginning, but so I'm applying for pupilages because I have theatre training. I think it would be nice to do something that has some element of public speaking and performance in a way, that sort of thing. Just because it's something that lots of my extracurriculars at uni have been linked to, even if they've not been so theatre kind of related. I'm also interested in political communication. I studied a fantastic module last year with Ben O'Loughlin and Marco. And it was just like, I love the idea of not spin in the classic sense, but just kind of the political communication aspect of the government's campaigns and that sort of thing. But obviously I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my love of journalism. And obviously my mum always says to me, I never choose the easy roads. You know, none of these things are like non-competitive. But political journalism is something that I'm just really fascinated by, and that's kind of why I applied to be senior news editor after last year as editor, because I kind of wanted to focus on current affairs and breaking news and that sort of thing, but also kind of deep dive political analysis. So yeah.
Very good. I think that's a big thing that has come in the last few years for me, which is almost kind of embarrassing, because you think that you're supposed to be almost, you know, aware of these things and political current affairs years ago. But I think, especially since coming to university and doing things like NMUN and joining Orbital, I think I've suddenly had these ideas that I never used to have before. And I think having the skill of being able to put that in writing is great. And I think, you know, if you do go into political journalism, it would be great, because you've got that skill and you've got those ideas that people need to read about. So yeah.
Wow. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
we'll get through this year first.
No, exactly. We'll get there. But yeah, I think that's something that all of us probably got a lot out of NMUN as well. Is that skill of kind of writing and researching, and obviously a lot of that was speech writing rather than writing articles, which is maybe what we're more used to. But then it's that kind of like new challenge in itself, which I know personally, I feel like I gained so much from. I feel like it's really helped like set me instead for whatever comes next.
I did think it was really interesting at conference when lots of the other delegations were kind of saying that our speeches were written in a kind of specific way, but really kind of really persuasively. And I think that's something that we, Annalie and I, really tried to do last year when we were kind of showing you guys examples, where it's like, if you make it a bit different, it's got kind of a quirk to it. You know, it doesn't have to be, and obviously when you're writing political news journalism, it's not persuasive as such, but just having kind of something that makes your writing kind of pop off the page a bit, I think is really, it kind of sets you apart a bit.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I remember getting to New York and doing the first day of conference and thinking, oh my God, all their speeches are going to be really good. And, you know, am I not prepared enough? And I think going in, and then I'm not saying we were better than everyone, but like, but I think, you know, we'd been so well prepared, and I think because we got on so well as a team, and I think that's important in every sense, you know, in Orbital we all get on really well, and NMUN we got on really well, and I think if you've got that, you know, your group has more confidence and you've prepared yourself better.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that was
100%. And I think we had such a lovely range of people in our delegation as well, in terms of age, what they were studying, what they were doing, just characters, like lots of different big characters. It just meant that we all gelled really nicely, I think, and that meant that not only when it came to the social side of things, which was such a lovely plus to have, when it came to the actual training, the work that went in and how productive we were able to be was really, so it was something I was quite taken aback by at first, I think, because I was so nervous about not being a politics student like it felt like most other people were. I felt, like you said, Liv, like a bit out of my depth, but then quickly realized that actually we could bring something a little bit different to the table, and every single person in our delegation was valuable, like in their own way.
I was just kind of about to say that, actually, that like you guys obviously you might have felt kind of disadvantaged, but you know, politics is something that you can very easily kind of get acquainted with, I think. But in terms of like writing in the way that you guys do, studying English, and like even having, you know, been involved in the Orbital and writing journalistically, it's having that you can bring, and everyone kind of bringing their different skill sets, different kind of perspectives. It was just, I could talk about that for the whole time.
I was just about to say, before this turns into an NMUN, that'll be reminisce. Let's go back to the questions. This is a tough one. Maddie, what would you say about being a journalist in our current political climate?
Right. So at my core, I wouldn't say I'm an optimist or a pessimist. I think I'm quite a realist, but I'm quite pessimistic about this in some ways, not about the future, but about the present. I have a pretty, I think it's a bit rubbish, essentially, to be a journalist at the moment, because I think, you know, you have, let's look at the BBC, for example. You know, people on the left think that it's in the pocket of the Conservative Party, and people in the Conservative Party and kind of on the right of the spectrum are kind of saying that it's a bastion of wokeness and this sort of thing. And I think this really shows, just I think a good example for how you can, even if something is on the page quite neutral, people will always apply their own biases, opinions, and biases. I don't mean that necessarily as like a put down, but just in terms of, what they consider to be the truth or what they consider to be good journalism and that sort of thing. And I think, even when you're an entity like the BBC that has been such, I could talk about the BBC also for so long, because I think it is one of our most important and powerful institutions as a country. I mean, I think it is something that actually genuinely has, from a very young age, kind of made me quite proud to be British, because I just think that it's just a fantastic organization. There are lots of issues with it, but at its core, its purpose is so important. And I think we need to preserve that. And I think it's kind of the way that it's being seen and perceived and presented by some at the moment is not conducive to kind of a good continued future for the BBC. But I will backtrack a bit and go a little bit more. I do think it's a very interesting time to be reporting on politics. Yeah. So I'm very interested in British politics from I have quite strong political beliefs. I'm a member of a political party and this sort of thing. So I feel like I have a strong personal stake in British politics, but I'm really fascinated by American politics as well. And I think it's a very interesting time to be reporting on politics, both sides of the Atlantic.
Definitely. Kind of leading on from what you're saying about the BBC there, our next question was about kind of public respect for journalism and kind of what your thoughts were at the moment on funding, on the implications of AI, things like that. Also in terms of student media as well. I know we've kind of come up against our own challenges sometimes in terms of wanting to keep print media alive. There's just lots and lots of different factors. So we're just interesting to hear your thoughts on that and hear your thoughts on kind of consuming versus producing news as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that journalism is, if it is not now, within the next kind of 5-10 years, it is going to face a massive, massive reckoning. Because I think at the end of the day, I don't think with social media, with instant communication that we have, journalism can carry on being, just saying what the news is. There are some fantastic, so I, for a bit of context, I was a live blogger at a conference for like innovators in digital journalism and that sort of thing, and I got to hear from some fantastic speakers, and a couple of them were from what's called like slow news platforms, where they spend months on a story and it's a deep dive. There is a true depth of analysis, everything is backed up, everything is checked, essentially kind of investigative journalism on but it's their whole platform is investigative journalism. I think that is maybe more of a route forward for journalism than just continuing with what has been kind of the classic breaking news, because people no longer go down to the newspaper stand for their breaking news in the morning. People no longer even really turn on the TV for their breaking news. I will see something on Twitter, or I will see, like, just as I'm scrolling, I'll get like a notification, and I will then go and turn on BBC News or Channel 4 News sort of thing. But I will do that because it's been preempted by a digital breaking news alert. And I think in terms of that, it's like journalism can't just continue on its old track. And you mentioned like funding and AI. I think, yeah, funding for, I use the BBC as a quick example again. I think under the current administration, they're going to kind of struggle to continue to be funded in a way that is conducive to their continued development. And I also think that other platforms, newspapers are losing backers, they're going out of print, they're going digital only, local newspapers as well. And I think local newspapers are so important. I've know quite well more about American local journalism, because obviously geographically it's a very different country, but over here as well, it's like so I'm from East Anglia, the East Anglian Daily Times I believe is now online only, and I think it's a real shame, because it is nice having the physical print in front of you, but I think maybe that works better with what I was talking about the slow news and investigative stuff, whereas breaking news, there's almost no point printing it anymore, because people can just get it instantaneously. And with AI, I think journalists will have to learn how to use AI rather than battling against AI.
Yeah, I think, sorry to interrupt, I think one of the big things we kind of, briefly touched on previously was like, how can journalists use AI to their own advantage? And I think, it's good for the consumers, because they can they're given exactly what they want. And also I think if it's used in the right way, like alongside traditional, means of publication, I think it can be a great thing for journalism. But it's hard, because I always used to say, oh well, AI will take away the personal element of journalism, but I think these days it can still be personal. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that is the scary thing.
Things like ChatGPT and
it's
stuff
evolved,
like that,
hasn't it, since we first had this conversation?
Yeah, and I think whereas I used to say, oh, it's never gonna be as good as the kind of personal journalism, maybe not those breaking news pieces, but like like section pieces that have an element of a writer's personality in it, but now it can kind of do all that, and it is scary, but I think we have to use it to our advantage, because it's clearly going to,
it is there whether you like it or not, isn't it? So got to learn to work with it rather than against it.
Yeah.
I think people who are, very passionate readers or very passionate writers themselves, they can, if they read a personal essay, for example, that's been written by AI versus one that's been written by a real person, might be able to tell the difference. But and I'm not saying this as a put down at all, but I think the vast majority of people don't read with enough of a critical eye to actually perceive the difference. And I think lots of people, they will open up an article and they'll skim through it. I know I do that sometimes, and I probably wouldn't be able to tell if if I wasn't deeply reading it, whether it had been written by AI, even if it was something that was talking about even if it was talking about the emotions in relation to something very personal, that sort of thing. This is because it learns from us. AI is almost developing the ability not to feel, but to work out emotional responses to things, if you know what I mean. And I do think it's kind of scary. I am a little bit old-fashioned in that sense, where it's kind of like it does scare me a little bit, but yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Definitely it'll work out. And I think on kind of off the back of that, I thought it was really interesting what you were saying about print media and kind of the decline in that on a more local scale, I suppose, and how I definitely agree with what you're saying in terms of when it comes to breaking news, how productive is it now when we do have kind of instant access instead to print, but when it comes to on kind of like a wider scale, away from just breaking news, more journalism in general, investigative or whatever it may be, what are your thoughts there on like how important it is to keep print media alive and give those opportunities, for example, to students, which is something that the Orbital, our entire time here, I think, has been quite passionate about staying with. Yeah,
definitely. It happened last year, it's happening this year. It's the battle to stay in print and to find sponsors who are willing to sponsor what they view as quite an archaic form of media. I will admit, I think I mentioned it earlier, I am a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to reading. Like, I would much rather I don't have a Kindle. I read everything. I will buy a book and read a book rather than reading it online. I'm devastated when something's out of print and I have to like find a PDF of it somewhere, because I just like having the physical copy with me. It's the same with magazines, you know. Until very recently, I had a subscription to the New Yorker. I've got just piles and piles of back issues because I love the, it's kind of difficult to explain. But you know, when you're on a news website or a magazine's website or something, and you're reading articles out of context, whereas I love when you have like, you know, the way that a magazine is being put together. You know, the New Yorker do a really interesting thing. They have like short snippets of articles at the front, not like snippets of larger articles, but just short little pieces about little like tiny interviews, micro interviews, like short like political opinion pieces, and then they move into the longer articles, and at the back they have book recommendations and that sort of thing. And just the way that it kind of follows through and all of that, I think there's something really nice about that narrative that comes through the magazine. And I think you do lose that a bit when you're just reading articles completely devoid from context online.
Yeah, I think one thing, as much as we're currently in the process of developing or typesetting the first issue for this year, and I think as much as it's taken, you know, blood, sweat and tears, I think without that, and if we were just online, we'd lose that kind of creative side that you were talking about at the beginning. And I think, you know, we've really enjoyed it, and I think without that, it would be a shame to just, you know, upload articles onto a website and, you know, that's all. But I think we're learning a lot from it,
100%.
and I think if, you know, future editors will learn those things as well. So it's a shame not to have that side and you have that creative control.
Yeah. Definitely. I think, you know, we've got the editor's letter at the beginning, we've got the crossword at the end, which is a labor of love. I do love the crossword. However, people do sometimes guess that it's me just based on what clues are put in. But yeah, I mean, I think there is just, especially for student journalists, seeing your work in print for the first time. And I do poo-poo on this word sometimes, but I think it can be so empowering to see that someone has taken your work and put it in a print magazine that you can hold in your hands and point to the page and go, that's me. And, you know, you've got your little byline and that sort of thing. I think it's, for early career journalists, I think there is something so exciting about, say again, just seeing your work in print, basically. You know, and I think it would be a real shame if the Orbital were to lose that, because I do think it's something that is just, and I do think it motivates people to write because they know that they're going to be able to see the work on a page.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to be honest, what you were saying about preferring to have a physical book rather than an ebook, I'm exactly the same, and I feel like that's a very widely accepted and valid way to feel. But for some reason, when it comes to journalism, people tend to kind of change their tune. It's like, well, why can't it just be online? And I'm not saying we shouldn't or don't utilize online journalism and online 100%. Media, but I think it's important to see the value in print media as well and not to lose that. But that's something I could talk about forever, so we'll move on, because we are,
I feel like every topic we have, it's like we literally could spend the entire period of time just talking about that.
Yes. But so our next question is, it's kind of our last question, but so as senior news editor this year, what are your plans?
Right, so I have kind of, throughout my time at university, I've been part of an organisation called Empowered Journalism, and it's kind of for women and non-binary individuals who want to get experience kind of writing from a brief. And kind of since my first year, I've been writing lots of current affairs pieces, and I've been really interested in that. And obviously last year I was editor, so I was doing kind of oversight and that sort of thing. I did write a few articles myself, but I'm really looking forward to kind of looking at, I think I mentioned earlier, like political analysis, that sort of thing, like maybe curating some news features on similar topics and that sort of thing. for the print issue, and then online I would love to get some more Royal Holloway based news going on, because I think a few years ago that was quite a big focus of the Orbital, was kind of very specific, localized opinion pieces, culture pieces, news pieces, that sort of thing. And while like I do obviously I kind of was the precipitator of that last year, but I definitely think it's valuable to talk about things more widely, and especially because we're so connected these days with social media. It's like, you know, it doesn't have to be something that's happening here and now for everyone to be interested in knowing about it. But I would like to kind of get a bit more. I wrote in my first year, there was an Extinction Rebellion protest on campus, and I interviewed some of the attendees and wrote like a little piece about it. And I'd love to do that, more of that sort of thing, where it's kind of you know, connecting with student groups, student organizations, student protesters, and that sort of thing. So a mix of the two, kind of wider political analysis, but also some kind of more Egham, Royal Holloway student-based things.
Oh, lovely.
So to finish off, something we want to do with all of our future interviews, can you give us a book recommendation, please?
Oh,
no pressure.
Oh, that is right. I cannot remember who wrote it, so I'm just going to Google that quickly.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Okay. So so a few years ago, I was like a massive fiction reader. I would read, you know, at least a book a week sort of thing. And then I got into kind of memoirs and biographies and that sort of thing. And recently I read Reckless Daughter, which is a portrait of Joni Mitchell by David Yaff. I love Joni Mitchell. I am so sorry to the two of you, because you have heard me go on about Joni Mitchell.
I knew it was going to come up. I knew it was going to come up.
Yeah, of course. Just like I haven't mentioned Sarah Jane Smith yet. But you know, last year I literally had a portrait of her on my bedroom door. When we had a party, I got everyone to bow to it as they came in. Most people did, actually. Most people did. But it's fantastic the way that he just goes through her life. Some people have said that maybe it's a little on the fawning side, but I fawn over Joni Mitchell all day, every day, so that was obviously not an issue for me. But I would definitely recommend it, and more widely, I would recommend, if you like have a music figure that you particularly love, find a good biography of them, because it could be so enlightening to their music and give it angles that maybe you haven't thought of before, and that sort of thing.
So I think that's everything. So thank you very much for joining us in the bedroom over there. And we look forward to our next interview that should be in the next few weeks, and we'll be keeping secret for now. But yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Maddie. It was really great.
Of course, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, right, we'll see you soon, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Oh, I don't know if I how do I
stop recording? Liv doesn't know